them?
Yeah, there are chairs there. Tommy moved. He didn't want to sit on me. She's already plugged
I
in.
thought she wanted her name plaque, but
She's already plugged in over here.
She is, she's
She's
good.
plugged in.
All right, guys, so you're live.
Awesome. Live. Okay.
Oh, that could be true. I did not.
Sorry, we're live.
We're live. Hi, everybody. Visual roll call.
Camilla here. Visual, okay.
You
Carol
might want
Lucky
to, I don't know
Burrows.
that they have the thing turned on yet.
Oh, okay, so Carol
Is it-
Lefnick Burrows.
Camilla Campbell,
Here.
Tom Kress,
here,
Craig Stevens,
Here.
Cy Michaels.
Here.
Thank you, Ray. Next item. Approval of the minutes.
I'm sorry, I don't have a,
we
a
don't
walk
have,
through of the agenda.
Okay.
I need one too.
I told her I'd use my phone, so there you go.
Oh,
I have, you guys want to borrow mine, because I don't keep it.
you're so sweet. She's making a copy. I think you feel bad. It happens.
Yeah, and I told her she didn't have to print me enough waste of paper.
And I'm spoiled because.
And you're spoiled.
In the meetings, we
That's
usually have
right.
in front of us, so I don't worry about running back to the hotel.
I got the folder.
Okay. Craig's all dressed up today, where he's going. Craft ended yesterday. I mean, the final meeting of it, and that was probably one of the best meetings.
It was a good meeting. It was
Really,
yeah.
that 3-3 sleep I'm really gonna work on. Actually, I'm gonna work on it, and post it at the hotel.
Uh-huh.
So like, kids, family, lovers,
Yeah.
something, you know. Thank you so much, Chuck. Sorry.
You're welcome. No worries. We're good. You're welcome.
And it was good to listen for the
Yeah.
merchants too.
Yeah.
It was really, it was interesting.
Approval of the minutes of the May 1st meeting. Does everyone have a chance?
Did everybody look at them?
Yeah.
We distributed those digitally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I
I
had a
moved to
chance to
approve the
review them.
minutes of last week.
Second. Have a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Did everyone have a chance to review the financial report as well?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So the difference in this financial report and last month's is that this includes January through April. Last month, we looked, 2 weeks ago, we looked at first quarter. We're still refining this, as the tourism board discussed, to include revenues and include several other items.
Yeah, just let me know how much we have, because
Councilmember Griego, do you have the, are you able to do that? Okay, great.
that's the tree replacement for the golf course.
So these include the April charges. You'll see the bulk of the charges happen in outside contract services. So it completes the, we're getting close to completing the travel planner project.
So we'll need to have a motion to approve the financial report. Do I have a second?
In detail,
So with the grant, you have to replace every tree that
I'm concerned about the wages,
okay.
and I don't know if this is, like I said, the proper time. I see so many categories of wages, and I just don't understand why marketing money is being spent to make payroll.
I think this is a great conversation for us to have on the record. This is a good time to do that. I had a conversation with Mr. Pat Patrick, the previous chair of tourism, this last week. And for years, the determination was that tourism dollars that were passed by the ballot initiative could not be spent on salaries. So for quite a few years, trolley drivers were paid for out of the general fund by the city, but trolley maintenance and upkeep was paid for by the tourism board. So in other words, the city attorney at the time determined that the money could be spent on purchasing on maintaining a trolley, but it cannot be spent on paying trolley drivers. Same thing, that was the question about the Welcome Center, where there's certain aspects of operating a Welcome Center that could be paid for by tourism board and certain aspects like salary that could not. The fact that you bring this up is interesting because I also had a conversation with our auditor who's going through the audit of last year, and there is some question about whether the trolley as a capital expenditure could have happened with tourism funds. So we're having that conversation at the audit level, and I've asked the city attorney to make a determination on the salaries. Setting that aside, even if it's legal and it's auditable to spend this, when you look at the salaries that we're going into with Welcome Center, trolley drivers, and the tourism administrator, there is a good chance that a large percentage of the money of the tourism tax will now be spent towards salary. So I don't have an answer for you today. I think your question is well received by staff. We're having some of the same thoughts, particularly coming to the end of this craft initiative. We're looking at doing some large, long-range plans to determine a strategy to then invest money in professionals that help us market or in other ways to help us market. The question will become, is the money that you're tied to investing now in salaries taking up too much of the available funding for marketing?
What do the bylaws say on that?
It's the ordinance, and it goes to the language when the tourism initiative was passed. It said that the funds shall be used for marketing and, let me say it correctly, visitor centers. It doesn't say welcome center, it doesn't say trolley. It says visitor information centers. Those are the three words. It specifically states that it can't be used for capital expenditures.
Could that be what we would be creating, visitor centers, as to how the money's gonna be spent to get visitors into the city and not the visitor center?
So how the previous city attorney determined it, this city attorney hasn't reviewed it. So Mr. Downs and I are gonna look at that next week. How the previous city attorney viewed it, from my recollection when I was the Welcome Center manager, is that a visitor information center could be the trolley, it could be the tourism trailer that's owned, and it could be the Welcome Center. Okay, so visitor information centers could fall in that. But it also says marketing and visitor information centers, but it doesn't include the word operation of. So what I would like to do for today's purpose is we've started having the discussion. With the board's pleasure, what I would like, and based on the outcome of that conversation, then we'll decide what the next step is.
To give you a little, oh, go ahead, son.
So the ordinance was written with the moving information system, and it was always the intent to buy a new trolley for the city of Trinidad.
It doesn't have the word moving, it's visitor information center.
Yeah, so, and Bruce Billings was the city attorney at the time, and he worked really hard on that to make that happen. The other way that we've paid fees for work was through contracts like Hess or through Studio 6. So it wasn't directly, it didn't show as a line item, but it was always paid for someone's work towards marketing and advertising, and just a different flow through way. So the ordinance also reads that you have somebody that helps oversee it, and it doesn't say if that's 1% of the fees or 100% of the fees, but you.
It doesn't. Well, I'd like to once again get the city attorneys, in 2016 was when the change happened. About mid-2016, the tourism board, for the first time since its inception, paid salary. In 2017, that grew, and in 2018, it's grown more. So I guess I don't have a determination for you today, Mr. Stevens, but I think it's a valid question.
Can we have copies of the bylaws?
We will prepare them for this discussion and send them out.
And even though it grew, I really have to say though, that just to recap everybody, is that it grew because we were seeing it on this line item. The last year that Hess's were involved with the city, I think it was about half and half split of their actual salary versus marketing dollars that were being put out. So at one point, the salary for the tourism board probably was somewhere between at least $60,000 to $80,000 a year.
Well,
Mr.
just to
Andrew,
give you some
comment?
perspective, because I was on that original tourism board, and when we started, we had nothing but that ordinance. So
That changed everything.
we had no money, we hadn't started collecting taxes yet. So what we did is we spent a large amount of money on consulting fees. Cy mentioned Hazards. And really, besides having the city manager's secretary take notes for us, there, we did most of the work and the contacts. So now you've got the capabilities of spending that money and getting the assistance you need, so I think it kind of relates to effectiveness.
Well, yeah, I can see to a point where we do have to get to efficiency and to where the money is gonna go.
To recap a couple of things, there's no bylaws. It'll be the voter initiative, it'll be the ordinance, and we'll provide you with both, the language, ballot language, and the ordinance. And we'll be happy to provide you with both. One last thing, and then I think we'll move this on to the next meeting if you're satisfied. And that is, regardless of what the intent was or how we got where we are, as the director, my advice is that let's get a legal determination of what's allowable based on what the law is, and then let's talk about whether or not we can accomplish our goals within what's legally allowable, if we have to amend what's legally allowable to accomplish our goals. And then beyond that, let's take it to city management and have the next discussion. So I think the next determination is to have the city attorney visit with us. Let's look at the actual language and let's get a legal opinion on what's allowable.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think that the question probably is when we used HAS or we used, and this may be where you're going, when we used HAS or we used any other entity, including Sixtus that we're currently using, there was always a line item of this is what you get for that amount of money. And I think maybe what Craig's looking at is what do you get for that amount of money?
Well, we really don't have any say in, the pay that's being paid. To me, they seem to be city employees, okay? And if money is going to pay for city employees, and then there's no money left for our festivals, for marketing, then, this is a problem. I see it as a problem.
So we'll just, any opposed?
Second.
Petitions or communications, oral or written? Does anyone have anybody?
Yeah, I do have a communication.
Okay.
I promised Tom that I would publicly apologize to him.
Oh.
And, for 3.5 years, I've been upset about a dog. It wasn't his dog. And I thought it was Tom's. So I apologize to Tom. I want you to understand that Tom was very gracious to me. He didn't have to be. And I thank him for that. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Craig. Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. Let's all work together.
Yeah.
All right? We're here because we love our little town.
The other petitions, communications, oral or written? I gave you that bill for go travel sites. Probably the other exciting things, just to say in the meeting, is that the golf, not the golf, the tennis courts are almost done at the golf course. So that's an exciting thing. So we can really have like a city clubhouse, right? Because you've got tennis and golf.
Shall we go give it a round of
Yeah,
tennis?
let's do
Yeah,
that.
let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, policy items, craft, rural tourism.
Okay, so craft rural tourism is the first module. We're going to walk through a module each time we meet. The outcome of this is for you to give staff direction on how we're going to use the information that we were given. So this isn't going to be the long presentation that was done during the craft model. I want to run through this in about 10 minutes. I have some specific questions based on the first PowerPoint presentation. And then we have a homework assignment from that. The reason I wanted to do this in the meeting is so that first it can be recorded for the community to see. Second, each time we walk through one of these presentations, there'll be a deliverable for staff to bring back. And those deliverables will be will be crafted to put to the long-term tourism strategy that the board wants to achieve. So rural tourism. The purpose of this is, what does rural tourism encompass? What does rural tourism encompass for you? What makes it different than urban? Quick answers, and we'll run through this.
What
If you've
makes it
got them.
different? It's a whole different market set of people. It's rural.
It's a different environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the role of tourism in Trinidad's economic development strategy?
I don't know if that's been depicted completely, but if you add up all the hotels and restaurants in this town, Trinidad would be hurting dramatically if we did not have tourism. So tourism has to be our focus. It's our number one employer in the city.
Okay. Rural tourism are defined by the craft initiative experiences that take place in less developed areas, which makes it more challenging in some
More
ways
challenging.
because you don't have the infrastructure already in place. Creating assets in the community, do you see, as we're going forward as the tourism board, that you want to see assets created in the cultural creative world, in the culinary world, in agritourism, in outdoor adventure, and in heritage? Those were the 5 tenets of destination development. Do you feel like any of those are something you wouldn't want on the long term to see developed?
No, any of them not developed? No.
Yeah, we need to
Okay.
develop them all. We need diversity in tourism.
So what would you pick first?
Ooh,
Ooh, outdoor.
Outdoor?
yeah,
So,
Next.
we have it.
Yeah.
If we're prioritizing them, let's
Okay.
prioritize, so outdoor rec, outdoor adventure.
Give us those 5 again.
So it's a cultural, and that would be your creative aspect. So an example of cultural would be both Articade and Trinidadeo. That's music, that's creativity. Heritage would be your Santa Fe Trail. It would be your byways.
Architecture.
It would be your architecture. It would be your museums. Agritourism that we learned was agricultural tours and how to draw in activities in undeveloped areas, equestrian. The rodeo would be kind of an agritourism opportunity. Outdoor adventure, and then culinary, and that would be food to table.
So what would we consider the next one we should focus on? Culinary, agri?
Culinary.
heritage of our building on our menu. And
Right.
it's very specific about things that people are really interested in, and they are fascinated by the story of our building.
I agree with you on that, but I also, during one of the speeches, listened to this lady on other heritage, is our mining community and why we brought our mining community to this down.
They did highlight that.
And I think because the Santa Fe Trail from Kansas to Santa Fe, it's 200 years old. They want a more current, why are we here today? What brought us here today? And I think we need to elaborate on that a little bit more. I think we need to work on our mining communities and talk about a little bit more our mining communities from here to up the river.
And our buildings.
Our buildings.
I think culinary because
And
the
I agree
people
with
coming
you.
off of this highway are coming to eat.
Yeah,
And if we have places to eat, that's what's gonna draw them.
Okay.
We already know gas draws them, but food.
I agree with that, and there was so many, on some of the speeches were so many where they have festivals to bring in food, different kind of food of their heritage of this area. It was very interesting to see these other little communities doing that.
So
You know.
with that mix, how would everybody feel about heritage being 2 and culinary being 3, since they're so closely tied? Is that good?
So,
Which one?
and that one is cultural and agritourism,
Outside activity.
Then I would go cultural.
number 4. And agritourism is and we all know that's kind of our undeveloped area.
That is an undeveloped area, would be nice, but
We
it
haven't
isn't.
even really identified community champions for that. When we got to the end of the craft initiative, in the very last, in the room, in these areas beyond our tourism board members, we had creative district there, so the cultural was represented. We had heritage there, so the heritage sector was represented, and we had outdoor rec.
Mhm.
We still hadn't really identified a culinary or agritourism champion. We had several in the beginning, But when you got to the end of it, that was who hung in there.
Yeah,
So,
they're still getting off the highway looking for something to do, looking to eat.
Eat is a
That's the
big
number
thing.
one thing.
That is the number one
Looking,
thing.
looking to do something, and so doing things is how we can keep them here longer. You know, if they can do the bike, if they can fish, if they can do these things.
so let me ask you these 5 in one other way, and then we'll move on. So if you think of things as attractors and satisfiers, what I'm hearing you say is that culinary falls in that satisfier category, but outdoor rec might be an attractor.
Yes.
So someone might travel here for the outdoor rec opportunity, but if they have a great culinary experience, it might bring them back. That might be the thing that makes the
Well, that's what's
experience
bringing a lot
special.
of people back to Main Street. One particular restaurant is Bella Luna,
Right,
because that same
Been
group
there for many years.
travels for 4 times of the year, whether it be winter break, spring break, in the summer. They're all going right on Main Street.
so if we concentrated on culinary as a satisfier now, but I saw that there's a wine dinner coming up, which I was of particular interest at Tease Me Treat Me. The more we get those culinary events developed, we may develop a market as an attractor that comes specifically for culinary, so.
And just to, yeah, and to move that forward, because I'm with you on knowing culinary too, is I still would love to see Trinidad move into the farm-to-table movement, which every restaurant has one local thing in it. And so we could advertise Trinidad as farm-to-table, 24 hours, every restaurant, every day.
Okay, so this gives us some good direction when we're going forward about how to prioritize. The last thing I wanted to ask before leaving this section is, how are we gonna measure our success? Let's just talk really high level. Lodging tax is one way that you look at your work and measure, but are there other ways?
Restaurant tax.
Restaurants. So if we created a bucket of sales tax that was collected from restaurants, then that would be something you'd wanna look at.
Sure.
Downtown merchants,
Right.
is that another way?
I'd say higher attendance continuously at all the festivals we do.
Okay, and festival out inventory, which is where we're gonna go with the homework assignment when we start to create an inventory. Keeping an inventory and bringing it to the board every 6 months to see what new things have been developed, what things have fallen off, are we sustaining our tourism assets? What we define as assets. Would keeping a regular inventory be something the board would wanna look at?
Yes.
Okay.
What we have and what we create.
Mhm. And then I pulled off the Dean Runyon survey. You'll see in the PowerPoint that website at the end, there's 2 surveys, Longwoods and Dean Runyon. They're mostly gauged towards state visitation trends, but they had statistics for Los Animas County. And the statistics go from 2002 through 2016, those are the most recent. In 2016, 35.4 million in Los Animas County was brought in travel spending, which includes gas, it includes hotels, and it includes restaurants. 12.6 million was paid out in earnings, so that is the employment of any of those particular establishments. They encompass 586 jobs. They collect and produce 900,000 in local taxes and 1.1 million in state taxes. So I have emailed the state to see if the board could have a particular breakdown. They won't give us account level information, but if they could give us sector level information for where those statistics come from, we'd like to bring those back. They were a lot higher than I thought. When you looked at Huerfano County, ours was 35.4 million in travel spending and theirs was 12.6. So I believe that's probably our gas stations are driving that for the most part.
Yeah, and I mean, we have more hotels than most and we have more restaurants than most.
So-
yeah.
That's it.
The other, but you piqued my interest, I wondered if the tourism board could be notified whenever a business opens that is tourism related.
Okay.
So that we may be able to visit that business. If somebody opens up some outdoor rec or something, I'd like to know about it, or, anything.
So looking at the business licenses and classifying what's a tourism-related business, so we can give you a statistic on how many licenses there are. And then every quarter saying, here are the new ones that have opened within this quarter.
Yes.
Okay, that's all public information. The only other statistic that the city collects that I didn't know if it would be relevant or not was data on building permits, if there are buildings that are being rehabilitated for the purpose of tourism businesses. I didn't know if that is something you would consider a factor of success, but
Yes.
that's certainly something
That
we can
would
put in
kind of go
there.
in line with new businesses that are developed.
So you'd see the building permit before the business. So an example of the same developer is the Kip Hamden development that did the Toyota building. We wouldn't have included on your list, but we just signed off on a building permit this morning for the tenant finish in the Purple Toad, which will be a restaurant, so we would include that on the list. So looking at the factors of commercial building permits that are anticipated to be tourism businesses, we could look at those. So those would be the factors. We would look at building permits, business licenses, sales tax broken down by restaurant, downtown merchants, and then lodging tax, event attendance, which will have to depend on our partners to provide, visitation from the Welcome Center, and then an ongoing inventory. So if we set those up with the goal of having them ready by the end of the summer and ready to roll into the fall, then we would have our baseline, and this would be something staff could put together every quarter, and it would measure, perhaps help you measure your success. Is that acceptable to everyone as a homework? Okay. Okay, tourism is a community development and economic development. I want to run through this really quickly. So community development is what our Department, Development Services, does. And if you ever have a question about why you've got building and code enforcement in the same department as tourism and the Welcome Center, I think the conversation we're having. Community development is a principle where you reach into the community where there's wealth, experience, and knowledge, which are all seeded because you have that, and you bring that to improving the community. So just quickly, what are creative district? Trinidadeo, Articade, merchants. You know, chamber would be one we could work on developing that relationship.
Yeah.
So would you like, based on this, a list of community development partners?
Right.
Which the tourism board should maintain relationships with, and we would add that as new businesses or groups are developed? Is this something else you'd like to have in your repertoire?
So when you say have a relationship with, do we want them to attend?
I don't know, and I'm not suggesting, that's a great question.
I'd just like to know where we're all, so we can all get on the same page as to for the betterment of the community, then maybe at one point we could all work together
So-
in the strength, in those strengths.
Maybe the answer to your question isn't so much attend meetings, but if staff had a regularly developed list of tourism partners, maybe having them provide information to us that we use on Facebook and the website.
I think we should have a meeting where Parks and Rec shows
Okay.
up and.
Or
they-
one of us go to their meetings and report back.
But I'd like them to make a presentation, is here's where we're at, here's what we've done, this is what's coming up. And have them all, have one meeting when they're all at our meeting, so they can make a presentation saying, this is what's going on, we got a new trail going in, we've got this going on.
Yeah, I'd really love to be updated on Parks and Rec, even if they come here, one of us get assigned to go to them. I think that's really important with it, as fast as we're moving to outside recreation right now.
So you think as part of your work in thinking about how we're gonna market Trinidad, it would be helpful to have an actual conversation with
All these
these
entities.
organizations?
Yeah.
So why don't we provide you with the inventory
Mhm.
in the next meeting or so? And you prioritize and get back with us which ones you'd like to see in kind of the order, and then we'll start to invite them to the meeting to do, let's say, a 10-minute, no more than a
Mhm.
10-minute presentation on what's going on with them and kind of create those relationships.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
And as a note to that, we saw Tim Chrysler yesterday at the Final Craft, and he does have a flyer with the wormhole loop in that.
The wormhole
And they're
loop,
gonna
yeah.
come here and print off some, so us hotels will have some for
Right.
people that are asking.
Okay, so we have two. And then, as you can see, to Mr. Stevens' point, promote active and representative participation. That's what community development does, which is what you're doing right here in the meeting. One of the concepts, and we're not gonna get into it in depth today, but I wanted to just touch on it, because if rural tourism is creating tourism experiences in areas that are less developed, then sustainable tourism practices have to be a discussion that might not be as important in other areas. And without going into this too much, the last thing I think is the quote here about halfway down when it says, when people ask what is sustainable tourism, those are tourism activities and practices that provide benefits to the community while minimizing negative impacts. So benefits to the community doesn't just mean great visitor experiences, it means benefits to the residents that live here. So how we craft our message and how we market Trinidad to bring people in, we'll have to give thought to what that does for quality of life here. And that's all I'm gonna mention about today with that. We'll have a full presentations on that. And then last, this was a list that the CTO created of the benefits of tourism, and I just want to point those out for those that are watching us and tracking our tourism board meetings. I think you've all mentioned this. It's economic impact, it diversifies the economy, creates jobs, gives individuals and families income, preserves natural and cultural sites. It's an exchange of ideas, it enhances community amenities, and community image and pride. And of course, the costs are how we approach it. We want to make sure we don't cause a negative environmental impact. We may have to pay for some infrastructure to make sure that doesn't happen. It can be seasonal. We don't want to depend on tourism entirely. It can cause inflated prices. You know, if you visit places that are just jam-packed with tourism, you'll pay more for your hamburger there. And the idea of creating rural tourism is that cost, that doesn't happen. I did have just 2 questions on that. What community-based tourism is being done? So that's that's where local people plan the events, and that way the events and the impacts are controlled locally. Most of our tourism is done this way. What would be the prime example, do you think?
Trinidadian architect.
Absolutely, absolutely. Whether it's a local wine dinner or whether it's a large festival, if local people are planning it and controlling it, then we control the impacts of this. And the last thing I just want to point out is it says communities are able to direct development according to their own values and interests. So that would be a different thing, would be bringing in a large amusement park, right? Or a large casino, and I'm not poo-pooing either one of those ideas, I'm just saying, then you put your development of tourism in someone else's hands. So as we go forward, it'll be interesting to see as lodging tax grows and we hit the $500,000 mark and we really have an ability to do some things. If the board continues to want to invest in community-based tourism, that is the signature of rural tourism. And the characteristics, obviously, we just talked about. We use our unique asset and our system. We focus on empowerment and ownership of our own tourism initiatives. If we're going to develop new tourism, is community-based tourism the way you would say at this point we want to go? Okay, you don't have any interest in doing anything at this time outside of community-based. So, for example, the way the tourism board the event for 3 years and then didn't fund them anymore. So let's say we identify a hole in our calendar and we want to develop a new signature event to anchor the season. Is community-based tourism the way you would want to go? Hiring someone locally to develop that?
Well, sure, I believe that would be on the table. It would also be open to if somebody else wanted to bring a big event into Trinidad that we could.
And we could help
work with them, so.
Work
Okay.
with them, and I
Yeah.
think there are people that are starting to move as far as our
Poetry
event.
Festival was
You know,
wonderful.
a bike,
And that
they're
was
talking
also-
about biking around this area, and it would be nice that we would be able to.
Santa Fe Trail Days, that's mostly for residents right now.
Mhm.
We've got Trinidad, we've got Arcade. So let's say a bike race became a really important
Important
thing.
thing.
The 2 ways to approach it would be to set aside, since we're gonna pay someone who puts together those to come in and do it. So people from the outside that do this professionally would come in. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. If we were to bring you an opportunity right now, which way would you be interested in going? Community-based or consultant-based?
I think community-based, I think they're looking for that right now.
I think we have enough people
To do that?
Do that.
to work,
Okay.
if somebody was coming in, to at least work with them.
Yeah, to
And
Okay.
have some control over,
Right.
you know.
Community-based development's the way you hold most of the control, but
Right.
you also have to grow it.
Right.
Which means, you know,
Yeah.
volunteer power and support and all of
Right.
those things.
So what Craig said is community-based development, but if somebody came in with an idea, if we had somebody work with them, yeah, I don't think we have any problem with that. We just want good things for Trinidad.
Okay.
And it would fall under the umbrella of the community-based.
Uh-huh.
It would depend on how we set it up,
Right, and
right?
I think it should be fall under that umbrella
Okay,
of community-based.
okay.
And we do need a bike race.
We
We
do
do.
the bike ride. I would love
We
to push
do.
that one right there. The
And-
youth event.
And so
Yes.
this is, oh, so go ahead.
Is there a, I know that there's held all over the state, but is there like,
Century Ride?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, didn't
We
somebody
already went
went
out, kind of an investment in that. It's just identifying the local people to put that together. So if this, and outdoor recs, what I heard you say high on the list, then maybe the first person we invite to come visit with us is Tim Chrysler. We pull together all the information of what was already done and we see if it can be picked up.
Picked up, yeah.
Well,
And then-
like the-
Because I've been hearing
like the
rumors of people
Carissa
picking up.
family that sells bikes.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
they're on
If we
this,
could get them involved in the, something like with the back.
or
roads.
connect us with somebody.
Right.
Or connect us.
The 100-mile ride left from City Hall and it went out Highway 12 to Cokedale and turned right along those back roads in Cokedale, went up through Bon Carbo and dropped down into Ludlow. So there was this rest station in Bon Carbo, there was a rest station in Ludlow, and then the United Mine Workers were gonna provide activities around Ludlow, and there was a shorter ride to get to Ludlow for kids and families so that they could participate in that activities. You left Ludlow, you went down and crossed over by the Hogback,
Mhm.
went past the Hogback and dropped into Honey, came across 350 at Honey, and came up the back way, back around and up Great Creek Road,
Right.
through the top of Trinidad, dropping right down into Main and Commercial, and then back to City Hall. And the ride, and we had met with all the sheriff's office and all of the volunteer fire stations who agreed to volunteer for the ride. So we had everything set up, we just didn't have a way at that time, 3 years ago, to market it to the bicycle community. We have that now within our community, we have those connections. So, okay, we'll put that on for the discussion with Tim Chrysler and the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission. So the last slide, recommendation for rural development. So, talk about these things. I'm going to bring these criteria up whenever we're talking about investing in things. Empower individuals. It retains money in the local economy. It stimulates entrepreneurship. It mitigates seasonality. It diversifies the economy. And I think these are really good criteria. And when I look at your grant process, the way it's established now, I'm wondering if these criteria could be used when you're granting money. You know, does this empower an organization? Does it touch volunteers? Or bring money in for the local economy? Does it stimulate entrepreneurs? Is it certain events that might stimulate entrepreneurs and certain that might restrict them? So we want to be careful that we're stimulating entrepreneurs. Does it offer something that mitigates seasonality and then diversify the economy and then provide a foundation for future development? So what do you think, are these a complete set of criteria for you to consider when you grant money?
It could stimulate. However, I think there may be some events that could happen in the future with families or children. I'm not really quite sure how I'd walk through that with what I'm thinking, but.
So I think we would put a scale, recommend a scale that adds up to 100. And if you felt empowers individuals was stronger, we would give that category more points.
Mhm.
I think what this would start to do when you receive a request for funding is, I'm not asking you to develop a policy that says we're not going to fund anyone unless they hit this certain level.
Right.
But I think it offers score sheet for you.
It's a wide range.
It's a wide range, a score sheet for you to do, and it would also hold up then on how you're evaluating lodging tax dollars.
And I just bring that to the table as an example for that lovely lady that, was she autistic, that gave that great speech that brought people in from 100
Yes.
miles? So she brought people in from all over, and she was really inspirational. It helped tourism. People came to town to listen to her. They ate at the restaurants, they stayed at the hotels, they did other things because she was really such a wow individual. However, I don't think she would stimulate entrepreneurship.
Okay, and so that might not preclude her based on how the rest of the, okay, so everybody's amenable to that, okay? So, any questions about what we've covered? We've got 3 homework assignments out of this presentation. One is to set up the data set collection as we discussed. Number is this community inventory. It's 10 pages, so I didn't print it for you. I just want to bring it up and talk about it. Let me see if I can go full screen. I might have to get Victor and my technical support help to go full screen here.
Victor, you're not jumping up, honey.
Yeah. View, surely maybe in view it's there. How do I go full screen?
Oh, yeah, that's real good. You just
Okay.
nailed it. Full screen, all right.
Yeah, we're looking. Okay, well, if we can't, that's fine. Well, okay, so let me just go down and show you what these look like. So there was some discussion. This is a community assessment. So assessment of overall organizational structure. You can see that it has, I think it's like 7, 8 questions and notes. And it asks the community to gauge the assessment of tourism. There's leadership, there's community involvement, quality of citizen involvement process, there's community infrastructure, public facilities and services planning, there's community design, there's tourism resources, so public land resources, profitable festivals and events. There's tourism businesses. There's marketing programs, and I believe that's, and then support, assessment of support, that's the last one. So I'm going to pass this around. This is the same thing you just looked at up there. What we're thinking is the way that the craft team suggested is if we could get a broad assessment from where we are now. Talks about perception as much as anything else. If we internally do this assessment, but what if we put it on SurveyMonkey and we tried to make a goal of getting 100 community representatives to take the assessment, and then we look at, it would be anonymous, but we would look at what the perception of tourism is. I think this could guide how we do our internal marketing based on if the board felt like the reality was a 4 and the community felt like the reality was a 2, you would say there would be a disconnect there, but at least that would lead our discussions toward trying to correct a perception. Or maybe we're looking at it, maybe we need to correct our own perception. So this is a vulnerable thing to do, to go to the community and ask them to do the assessment with the idea we would do it again in 2 to 3 years and see if we can improve those same values. It's a standard assessment, but we, as staff, don't want to pull the trigger without you being on board, because this would be the board we bring the results back to.
Well, and I'm all for input. I'm give me all the input person. The flip page to it is that you wouldn't ask Camilla to write about an assessment about, we have a disconnect with so many people that live in Trinidad that don't frequent Main and Commercial Street.
Right.
So, it'd be kind of good to get their point of view, but on the other hand, it'd be really skewed if they're not used to
And
what's going
I'm
on.
worried about the people that live out of town.
So would you want to do maybe 3 layers then? we send it to you as the board, and we all do ours and send it back, and Raven and Victor will collate that. I won't even look at your responses. We'll collate that and we'll say, here's what the board is. Then let's go to our partners, this community partner list. Let's go to the Trinidadian board. Let's go to the Creative District board. Let's go to our community partners by going to the chair and saying, would you complete this and get us back your answer? And then we have that layer, and then do you want to go community-wide? And
I think that
do the
second
third layer?
group is the most important group for us to
Okay.
hear from.
Businesses.
Okay.
Just to serve right for businesses, because we're gonna get the most input for someone being in business
Okay,
as to, hey, you need this.
okay.
Well, I
Maybe
thought they
we
were the
should-
second group.
You
But
know,
he's right.
But I think that's where we're gonna get our strongest points from. I do see a community down the road once we haven't established, but I think businesses would be, and every business, everybody that's in business.
So if we did a front and back, we'll dump that first sheet and we'll do a letter on letterhead. And then we'll do a front and back, that's 5 sheets long. We'll staple them, we'll drop them off to the downtown business community. We'll take them to the merchants. So this will take longer to do it this way, to do it targeted. And then we'll see what we get back. Some merchants may choose not to participate.
Right.
Ms. Griego, did you have a question?
How are you going to keep the people that were involved in craft like Jeff, Vivica, the young lady from the museum? Are you going to keep them involved in this process?
So the result of this would come back not only to the tourism board, but to the stakeholder, to the craft stakeholder group. There's 4 or 5 people that stuck through to the end and asked to be regularly updated. So the homework that I discussed, 1, 2, and 3, but this craft assignment would come back to the craft stakeholders group.
I would like to hear from some of the merchants that, their perspective of the tourism board that we never hear from. You know, there's some businesses that are open that they're never.
And the
never
reason
around.
this would
And they
be-
don't visit one another's business either. That's the sad part of it all. You know, I would like to hear from them.
Yeah, it would,
So do you want a specific group, the Main Street from A to B and down
No,
commercial?
I like to hear from Trinidad builders.
I think a huge thing would be like the marijuana industry. You're gonna get a whole different look from them. Just a person like Trinidad Builders, they're gonna give. a whole
Brand
different
rental, they're gonna give us a
thing.
whole different
They're gonna give
perspective
us a
on
whole different perspective.
who's moving here and who's doing what. you know.
So back to what's the easiest way to do this and throw the broad Raven were to go hand out these individuals. The idea of getting those back and collating those.
And giving it to the survey maker, to our
It's
businesses.
very time consuming, and I think, you know, if Craig gets an email and it's from the merchants group, or it's from the restaurant group, the entertainment district, and it says, please, this is important for tourism, please take this. This would be something you could do in 5 minutes at the computer.
How about the chamber? Can they be
Put it to
involved
their
in that?
membership,
And,
sure.
and another thing too is like the pamphlets that were printed.
Mm-hmm.
How about like one of those to each business member? And, you know, I know we're sending those out, but you had 20,000 copies
Of the pamphlet?
of the
I'm
pamphlet.
sorry, Mr. Kress, I don't remember
Trinidad,
the
yeah,
visitor's guide.
the
Oh, the visitor's guide.
Mhm.
The visitor's guide. We have 40,000, but those are directly for tourism distribution
Uh-huh.
to get people here
But
that
what
this
he's-
time.
But what I'm saying is like, if a business owner saw that and say, well, I didn't even know this existed.
Oh, okay, so,
You know,
so
that and a survey.
Ms. Paez has begun, and in the distribution report, I'll talk about where she's gone and where she hasn't gone, but the goal is to get it out.
Yeah, I like your idea a lot. I think that there's a lot of businesses that don't even know that is available as a tool or the stuff that's in it. So it would be really great for the businesses to know that exist. And if we do the survey with the visitor's guide, I would like a letter explaining what craft is And two other items is from other business people and peers of ours, is to have, what businesses do they feel like we need to bring into Trinidad? And what events do they feel like we need? Because some of those people don't come forward and talk to any of us. If we're gonna put a survey, I'd like to know those two things.
So I think if we do this assessment, it leads to that is the next, you're getting to the specifics of the third one.
But not just the businesses, I think the festivals, those folks need to do the survey.
I
Any,
agree.
anything that, your parks and recs, they need to do the survey.
Okay.
Main Street needs to do the survey.
So the
Cultural.
68 city
Yeah.
seated boards will get the survey.
And that way you're gonna get your 100
Did you
or
say
more.
68?
68 seated volunteers that serve the city.
Oh, 68 people, I thought you said
68
68
people.
boards.
And then outside agencies like the Chamber and the merchants will send to them directly and ask them to distribute it. Marilyn Lusler has most of the artist community. I think we'll send it to Southern Colorado Repertory Theater and engage most of those. I think we can also ask everyone to forward the link to any one of their relevant people. But do you also then, as a last piece of it, since this will be the quickest and most efficient way to do it, two things. First, we won't ask them to identify themselves, but would you be okay if we add a category? Are you a merchant?
Yes.
Are you a nonprofit?
Mhm.
Are you however many apply, please click these.
Right.
So you can identify yourself as a board member.
Yeah. And that's gonna
as,
break it down as to a whole, who
right.
took it?
Right. And that'll
Yes,
give
sir.
us an opportunity to identify what sectors. That's the first thing. And the second thing is it okay if we put this on Facebook, knowing that we're gonna get some folks that are visitors that classify themselves as visitors? Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll develop this, and by the time we meet next time, we'll have it out.
And one of the categories will be on the visitor.
I'm a visitor.
Okay.
You bet. I'm
Go
a
ahead.
visitor.
Okay.
Okay, that's everything I had for that section.
Thank you, Tara.
You're
Business
welcome.
items, unfinished business, the website, content update and monthly maintenance.
Okay, we have we went over the original contract with Studio 6, and the original contract called for branding and implementation. So in visiting with Mr. Downs, our city attorney, if you so choose, you do not have to, we can go forward with this contract because it's temporary, because it's between now and the end of this year. We can go forward with this contract as part of the implementation of the brand development. If you don't like this proposal, we can go back to them and ask for the proposal to be tweaked. If we're not able to reconcile it to your satisfaction, we can go back out and look for another way to maintain and update the website. The proposal is $2,600 per month. That's $18,400 for the remainder of this year. And that would come out of the line item in the financial. I gave mine to you, let me borrow it back. It would come out of the line item in the financial budget that has $32,600 in it, called kiosks, wayfinding, and signage. Right now, that funding is not assigned to any specific project.
So it would come out of that.
It would come out of that line item. You'd be reallocating $18,400 of those dollars to this.
I haven't been here up to that point to see how it's done.
And I'm completely unhappy with Studio 6,
Okay,
so.
if you'd prefer, we can certainly go back out and do a short bid locally, would be faster. If you wanted to go broader statewide and look at somebody like Ziv who did it before, I went back and looked, we paid $10,000 for 12 months. This would be $18,400 for 7 months, so there's a difference there.
We had a bid from Kirk and his group for a lot less than that.
But that bid wasn't in response to something we put out. We would certainly circle back to them and ask them to
Okay.
respond to
I
that.
think we should.
Yeah, that's probably the way we should do, is put the bid out.
Okay, I'm gonna make the last statement that Tracy Jones made, so that it will be something for you to think about with this contract. Once again, I'm not recommending this. But they would, having worked with the community on developing the brand, they would be implementing that brand, those fonts, those graphics, everything that we've identified with in the visitor's guide, we would get a foundation on for the next 7 months. Then if we decided to separate with them after that point, we would have and own everything that they had done. So if you look very specifically through the guide and through the marketing materials, there are fonts, there are colors, there are specifics that are carried through. I'm not, once again, suggesting and recommending this. I'm saying there is some thought process there. If they did this for 7 months, that we would have a website that had all of those in it. We would have Facebook posts. We would have Facebook design. If you wanted to do this for a 4-month period rather than a longer period, we could get through the summer, and in September, give us an opportunity to vet someone to take over in September, and we would own that. Now, I might recommend that scenario.
I'm more up to going with what you feel because you've been on the forefront of it, you know, to know.
Up until now, we wouldn't own it, then the rest of the stuff. It would be completely brand new everything, right?
So is there any way we could hire them for 30 days and put a new bid out, so they could just have a 30-day contract, and then we could see what the new contracts?
As you can see, this does not have a sunset date. I would suggest we hire them through September, and we'd be ready October 1. That would give us between now and then to hire someone to begin October 1. That would be June, July, August, September. That would get
And
us
then
through
we
the
could own
tourism and the
everything.
shoulder
Yes,
stuff.
and I think that's a,
Go ahead.
So is Studio 6 ready?
Yes, they'll pull the trigger today if we accept this. And that
I would
was-
go with your recommendation.
But I understand the cost,
I
there's a
do.
cost
I
difference,
understand the
and
cost
there's a
difference.
big cost difference,
Huge.
and Studio 6 has been expensive, and we have that on the table as being
Is-
expensive,
Is
but
there
I,
something about
Yeah,
their
they just do
performance?
things wrong,
Okay,
and I don't appreciate them. It's in the visitor's guide. You know, we had, you know, when I came on board, it was to do a visitor's guide. I wanted a visitor's guide, and we agreed that it would be to sell the town and not any individual businesses. They've gone ahead and put an individual business in there, and we didn't know that.
I did look back, there was an individual business in the conversation we had in the previous year in the same spot.
Well,
It
it
was
was
Dodge
okay
Creek.
because we only had one,
Okay,
okay? We only had one brewery. So
okay.
that was an attraction. But if you know, I don't want to be the one to talk to Frank or Fran or Jeff and Sandy and say, you know what, we decided to go ahead and put the newest
Agreed.
in here instead of you. It's a full page
One
ad.
particular restaurant was highlighted on the restaurant page. Last year it had been Dodgeton Creek Brewery. This
That's
year
an
it's
ad.
Los Animas Grill. They were highlighted on one particular page.
Yeah. You know, they should be reprimanded, they shouldn't be paid, something should be done. We have 40,000 of these.
yeah, I didn't know that they were that.
Si and I have had a conversation about should we go forward with a project like this in the future, having a small group, 2 of you, oversee the approval of all of the different graphics rather than staff, along with staff is what I should say, so that there's less. 3 of you have come to me with specific concerns about things that were approved in the guide. So what I want to say about the contract for Studio 6 is if we had that set up, Mr. Stevens, we wouldn't be in the situation. So some of that is our staff turnover. Some of it is us not clearly understanding what your concerns might be. And I do see, regardless of whether it's Studio 6 or a completely different contract in the future, how we can mitigate those things.
And I could see how that
I've also-
restaurant came in there being a new one, like Dodge Creek.
How
But
did
if
it happen?
an agreement was had on the board about
Right,
not
right.
highlighting a particular business and it
Right.
happened, then it's nothing against Jay. His
No.
business is lovely and we would absolutely love it, but
Yeah.
if that was the tourism board's direction and it ended up happening, then I think there's a couple of ways that we could mitigate things like that happening. The outside cover has a different quality to it than the inside pages. That was another issue that was brought up. And once again, if we have a tourism board representative that's going to work with staff and the contractor to make sure the deliverables exactly, that's the way I would propose we go forward,
Yeah, we were told
regardless
we
of what
wouldn't
it is.
notice a difference at all.
Yeah,
That's what
I
we were
asked about
told.
Yes.
And
I
it's-
just felt good to tear about that too.
So I think having those things on the record indicates, okay, so we have a great visitor's guide. There's a couple things about it that we would do differently, and we will do differently going
Right.
forward. So if that's the basis of your concern with Studio 6, then my suggestion is that we have someone from the tourism board work with staff and Studio 6 to provide these updates and to ask these questions as we go along, if you decide to do the contract with them for a period of 90 to 120 days.
Well, and I guess just from the tourism board point of view, and because they're working for us with this, with numerous projects, I would personally like to know an answer of why that happened. How did?
It was approved through a staff conversation.
Oh, okay.
It was, both things were approved through a staff conversation. I took both concerns.
Okay.
Two of you commented on the cover, and
Uh-huh.
then Mr. Stevens commented
Yeah.
on the feature. So I've taken that forward and gotten the feedback. So the way that we eliminate that is one of you would volunteer to work with staff on the website updates. And it doesn't mean that you would have to take an extraordinary amount of time, but it means that we won't sign off on a proof of anything until we've gone over it with that tourism board member. And that member may say, this is broad enough, we need to go to the board, in which case we'll just bring it to the board and schedule a 30-minute session to go through it.
I know you've really.
I would definitely volunteer for that.
Okay, so you
Okay,
have to
great.
volunteer for that.
So back to Studio 6, the reason I'm recommending if you go with this through September is that gets us through Articade. It gets us through Trinidadeo and Articade, our two big things with them making those continuous updates.
How do you guys feel about that?
So they're gonna get the website done then?
In
Yes.
3 months, they'll get a contract from now to September.
And we'll
For
have a
September.
calendar? How soon will we have a calendar of events?
Is there a calendar of events now? Because this is for updating. Okay,
But it's blank, right?
Yeah, yeah.
oh, there is a calendar there? I
It's just
apologize.
blank.
No, I
It's
haven't
blank.
looked at the current, because I know that.
So the new, well, we'll talk about that under staffing. How soon? I would pull the trigger on this and then we'll create a timeline. And I would ask for one of you to work with staff on the development of the website.
So I would say there's a couple things on the board, on the table right now, and one of them is, do we want to accept the contract for Studio 6 from now through September, aligning one of us to work with them on the website?
Work with us.
Work with
Staff
us.
will work directly with
Yeah.
Studio 6.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Does somebody want to make that motion, and how do you feel about that?
They just better produce.
I need a motion.
A second, do we have a second?
So to clarify the motion in the second, we would execute this contract to begin now and go through September 30th.
Right.
And at this monthly rate of $2,600, we would take it out of the line item for wayfinding and kiosks. And which one of you would work with staff on the website updates? So that when I'm making a critical decision about how we're gonna present something or what we're gonna do, I can send you an email and say, review this. If we need to set up a conference call, it'll mean hopping on the call. We'll try not to do in-person meetings,
I'll do that.
okay?
Okay.
Okay, so Tom will work with us. Okay, thanks, Mr. Kress. Okay, motion in a second, Chair?
Camilla seconded.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
okay, great. We'll pull the trigger on that one.
Branding the trolley?
Okay, branding the trolley. So this one has several different sections to it. I want to talk just about the first and second section. This would be a total of $7,560 for the development of the design, 3 different options that would incorporate, and it lists all the different things that would incorporate. They would provide fabrication estimates by 2 qualified individuals, and we talked locally about who that might be. And then the $800 per month is the 2-month estimated timeline, $400 for this month, June, and $400 for July. And then we would have fabrication. Once again, this uses the brand that we have to develop it. We found it difficult when we began to call the different fabrication companies locally and regionally and say, we need to get our name on the side of the trolley. They would say, what do you want? We would say, well, we want it to say Trinidad Trolley, and they'd say, great, what logo do you want to use? Do you want lines around? Do you want double lines around? Do you want this to be on the front? Do you want it to be on the back? We ran into so many questions that it was really impossible for them to even price out what it would be to design and fabricate it without answering all those questions. So once again, back to Mr. Downs to look at the implementation of the brand. and whether or not this would be something that Studio 6 could do. They have, once again, all the material. If you don't want to go this route, we're happy to provide the brand.
We still have to pay for the effort, we still
You
have to
still
pay.
have to pay for the effort.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it has to be done.
It's a money pit.
It has to be
The
done.
money put on.
And the thing of it is we
We're
need
not
to
the
move
only one that
forward.
has that money put on those
Is
trolleys.
there any negotiation or wiggle room in that at all? Because I'm thinking it's gonna end up costing $3,000 or $4,000 to paint it. I'm hoping.
It's gonna be a wrap,
Uh-huh,
is
a
what the
wrap.
final product will
Right.
be. Very little negotiation, but they do have a proven history, and they provided us with a proven history of doing vehicular
Uh-huh.
branding, which is
So
what this
is it gonna
is.
be this on there?
They're
This-
going to present 3 options to
Three
you,
options.
and you're gonna choose. In 2 weeks, we'll have some options, and you're gonna choose and say yes, no, this, that. Then they're gonna go back and redo it, and then we're gonna hone in on what you want. And then we'll have a guarantee for how long that will last.
So the one thing that I had put was, or I had asked is visit Trinidad, is that still possible?
It's absolutely possible. There's gonna be 2 or 3 go back and forth with you.
Yeah.
This, I think.
What's our new logo from the Craft 101?
Oh, I have it written down here, our new logo, we're just pretending here, everybody did not believe this, but we liked it yesterday, the beauty without the hassle.
The beauty without the hassle.
Yeah.
We like that one.
Then
Yeah.
we've got Way Out West, we've got a couple
I
other
don't like that
things,
one.
so,
Yeah, that's done.
at any rate, back to the guide and the hiccups with the guide. I don't wanna be standing in front of you in 2
Thanks.
months and have hiccups with the trolley, so.
Right, 'cause we need to.
It doesn't have to be Studio 6, but I think any company that does professional vehicular wrapping and branding is going to be in this price
Yeah.
range. We have to do a bid process, and we will close out Studio 6. Mr. Downs and I also had a conversation about this extension has gone on through several reinventions. So if we get the trolley done and we get the website and Facebook
And then we
page
should end it.
branded, then I think we're probably at the point then
We can move
that
on.
we can move on and we'll look for a broader,
Right.
we anticipate the guide's gonna last us 2 years.
Yeah, I'm not excited about the price, but I'm really upset that the trolley does not have Trinidad on it
And
already.
it
It needs
needs to
to
move
say that
fast.
when people see it that are tourists in town, they don't know if that bus came from Durango or Raton or where it came from.
Okay, I want
And
to,
and can we talk about additional parts with the trolley in the reports by?
we will.
So what?
And I have other things for trolley, but I want you to flip over this, maybe you didn't see the second side of this, where it talks about the interior branding of the trolley. This would be additional, it's 3,500. This is the second page of the estimate. So, it talks about branding the inside of the trolley interior with, as you have that, can you spout off, Mr. Stevens, what's included as part of that?
The design of interior bus boards to advertise local events or businesses. Studio 6 will design and oversee the production of these boards to coordinate with the new Trinidad branding. Design of one long graphic that spans the length of the vehicle. This graphic would be duplicated for both sides of the interior of the trolley, overseeing printing and vendor coordination.
So one logo will be from one end of it to the other?
Yeah, we're talking about the interior,
Uh-huh.
interior branding
Right.
only.
Has there been ideas as to what's that's gonna be?
This was a concept they do on a lot of their brandings. It's a way to commercialize the inside of it. It might say wine dinner on Friday night. It might say Trinidadeo on this message board inside the trolley. Would talk about current events, and they're talking about vendor coordination. So what they're talking about is they're gonna coordinate and program that.
How about local sites?
Local sites.
You know, because once they get in the trolley, then they're gonna get in their car, you know, so.
So, just on the inside design, so this would be advertisement of a local area. If we put restaurants, would we charge? How does that?
It does, yes. Often you do.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a
Well, maybe-
business we wanna get into.
Right,
Well,
but
you
then it
know-
would be hard to decipher who went in it.
The other part of that would be
Here's-
if you wanted to partner with the chamber down the road and they would actually sell and program the marketing inside the trolley, but I'm not suggesting that.
How about,
I want to cover it up.
I'm
Okay,
agreeing with you
perfect.
too.
I don't want to cover that up. I don't think we should start getting into selling advertising for the businesses. We need to focus on the town,
Yep.
and we need to stick to our guns with that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, events and Monument Lake, Trinidad, the reservoir, the golf course, we're fine with all that stuff.
We're really underutilizing the
Wormhole
Trinidad
Loop, you
Reservoir.
can put all that in there.
You asked about the video, so I'm gonna pull the video up. It's 22 minutes long.
Ooh.
I don't know that we have a time to watch it. I can send you the link. It's the Colorado Experience PBS show. Did any of you
Yeah,
attend
I've
the
seen
premiere of that?
I've seen the thing.
I sat through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that is what's playing on the trolley right now. I agree, it's not a tourism piece, it's a preservation piece. It's more about history and heritage and things like that. We did find the videos that you own that were produced in 2012. There are 7 videos. They span, some are about the parks, some are about the downtown shops, some are about Kit Carson statues, some are about
That's
the
what I
Trinidad
would like to
Lake.
see. I would
They're
like to
all
see
about all of
local.
the different amenities, and they can run in a loop off the DVD, or you can specify one.
And you can show those to us?
I can't today, I can forward them to you, so you can watch them on your own time.
I
I
would
want to
like-
be sensitive of the fact that we've been going for quite a while. If we start getting into videos, it might take the rest of the hour.
I would like to see like a little excerpt from the Blues Fest, the Arcade, all the things that go on here, that's what should be in that bus, because how many people get on the bus in a year?
Why don't
How many
we-
people will come back?
Why don't we agree that Rocky Mountain PBS's Colorado Experience Special is wonderful, but maybe not what should run on the trolley?
Right.
It should not run.
Okay, that's one. Second, why don't we take our technology here through City Hall, and we'll take that DVD and we'll export it into a digital copy that we can put in a Dropbox, and we'll agree that over the next 2 weeks, you guys watch these videos.
Plus, don't we also have the videos of,
Thanks.
the videos of, that Flycam took of Trinidadeo, of Arcade, don't we have that
Okay.
stuff?
Do we own those?
I don't know.
I don't think we own those.
I don't know that would be a question of Flycam. We
Okay.
paid for them, we don't know if we
Okay.
own the artistic
Yeah.
That'd be
capabilities.
something to find out.
Flycam.
Yeah.
You said Trinidadeo?
Yeah, they did all the festivals, I think. They even had the Christmas lights and
I remember the Christmas lights. Okay, I will talk with Brad and find out what we own, and then we'll be able to come back. So we agree that we'll send you, it'll take us the rest of this week, but we'll send you an uploaded link to watch those videos.
So,
now, we're not going to go back to the driver talking about the town. We're not gonna do that?
Well, yeah.
There is one driver that prefers to do that and one driver that doesn't. I want to talk about the, thank you for leading into that, or other trolley issues.
You're welcome.
I had a driver meeting, we're set for the summer. We've got 2 drivers that are gonna overlap. It's gonna run 7 days a week. It runs 12 to 5 on Sunday. It runs 10 to 6 on Friday and Saturday, and it runs 10 to 4 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We've got 2 drivers. One prefers to speak about the town and feels like that's knowledgeable, and she's able to do that. The other one doesn't prefer to speak, so I think we're gonna need a combination. We went over the route as we discussed it several months ago. There are, when there are kids on the trolley, they tend to love to stop and go to the archaeology museum up at the college. When there's adults, they tend to love to stop and go see the mural at the hospital. I verified with the hospital that they were okay with us bringing folks into the lobby to look at the mural. So my direction to the drivers was for them to continue to make that call on the ground based on who is getting on the trolley
I agree.
and what they think is the most enjoyable. Okay? They're all licensed. We've got them worked up through payroll. It will be on May 22nd. The regular route starts on Friday of Memorial Day weekend. Runs through Monday of Labor Day.
All right.
so still on the table, I think what we have is.
Yes.
Still on the table, what we have is this contract for approximately $8,000. And what I'm hearing is that you want to approve the $8,000 to get that, but we're not we're not looking at inside, is that correct?
Approve section 1 and section 2 is what I'm hearing, not section 3, which is the optional interior marketing.
Correct. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Go ahead and approve the contract for the first two sections of 8,300, or no more than $8,500. And for section 1 and 2, do I have a motion for that?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Tara.
Okay. New business.
Okay. New business. Reports by members, staff reports on the craft.
New business with Santa Fe Trail Days.
Oh,
It's just
sorry.
this little line at the top
Little
of
line,
the second
yep.
one.
Oh, yeah, it's a little line.
There's a little line.
Santa Fe Trail Days. Okay, so new business is Santa Fe Trail Days has given us a grant that I do not have in front of me. I don't know if you guys have it or not. But they are looking for any funding for the Santa Fe Trail Festival. Is that
Sorry, I
correct?
apologize, I
That's
didn't
okay.
flag it.
That's
When
okay.
you sent it to me via email,
Yeah.
I didn't flag it for
Oh, okay.
the
That's okay.
agenda.
I could probably bring it up if you want me to bring it up. Let's take a moment to do that, actually.
What was the basis of their request?
For advertising and promotion, just for the surrounding area, how they always do. And before I say more, let me find out exactly what we have here. We'll rush through as soon as I get this up here.
While Cy's bringing that up, can I cover some,
Yep.
just housekeeping?
Yep.
Wednesday, our first meeting in July is the 4th of July, so obviously we won't be having a meeting on the 4th of July. Do you prefer another day that week, and if so, do you like Tuesday the 3rd more or Thursday the 5th more? Or none that week, because you're
Say
really
none that
busy?
week.
I'd
Yeah,
say
that's
none
what I was
that week.
thinking.
Okay, so we will skip that meeting and then hold to our regular meeting on the 3rd week of July.
Okay.
Okay, so that will be canceled.
You going somewhere? You're not going anywhere.
Possibly.
No, you're not. You guys are.
So we'll meet once in July, which I think is appropriate given the high tourism season. If we have deliverables that are due and they can't wait, then we'll figure out a way to have those gotten to you for your review so we can act on them at that one meeting in July. Moving forward, while Chairman Michaels is looking that up, I'll do my staff report. The Craft Studio 101 wrapped up yesterday. We are getting the outline of a marketing plan as a deliverable, and then the group that worked on that, Jeff Peterson, Kirby Stokes, Vivica Atkinson, Cy, Camilla, Tom, Tim Chrysler, I believe that's the group, I have it on my desk. We'll meet to continue to flesh out that draft report, and we're hoping to have that maybe at that meeting in July for you guys
That
to
and
look
food.
at. That and food, yes. So,
After I could eat.
what the outcome of that will be are two things. One will be a light marketing plan that will get us through next year and the next year. And it will provide direction based on the conversations that happened. And it will recommend the types of things that the types of channels that we advertise through, how much money we should put into each one of those channels. Thing is, a project is going to be defined by the middle of June to hire a consultant with the dollars provided by Craft Tourism to do a complete visitor profile. So this would be a consultant that specializes in that. The visitor profile would include who's visiting, where they're coming from, why they're coming, what they've been interested in seeing when they're here, what surprised them. It will also identify areas that we have assets now on the ground that we can market to, and it will recommend the broadening of that visitor profile to include these other segments. So it will give us a good profile of who's coming now and who we should be inviting to come, and we anticipate that in and of itself will take a year, because generally when they're looking at visitation data, they'll go a little bit in the past, but they really want to see on the ground what's going on, and we hope to have that start September 1 and end August 31 next year with a wrap-up. So that's how we'll use the dollars that were given to us. That's what the group decided to invest the dollars in, was getting that baseline data of who's coming and who really we have the opportunity to market to. So that's the craft wrap-up. The Welcome Center staffing update, we have held several interviews for the Welcome Center manager and visitor travel event planner. Thank you. Yeah, event planner, and we're honing down on that. So we hope our next meeting to be able to give you a report on a hire there. Finally, Raven provided a distribution report. Raven is attending the Southeast Tourism Conference in Pueblo today, representing the city. So the distribution of the new guide has begun, and she's doing the mailing list next week. And downtown distribution, 17 boxes went out on May 4th to a few hotels, shops, and restaurants. She's coordinating with the storage, which is at Space to Create. 5-4-18 gathered 17 boxes. Half of the boxes, they have 120 guides in them. La Quinta, Days Inn, Trinidad Inn, Holiday Inn, the Welcome Center, Moose's, the Bed and Breakfast, I assume that's Terrabino, Curly's Beats, SCRT, Bella Luna, Tease Me, Treat Me, Los Animas Grill, Double D's, 2D Scoops, Ritual Room, Yoga, The Lunchbox, Purgatory Trading Company, and Articade. That was on 5-4-18. Coming up will be the Cafe, Nana Nanos, the History Museum, the Galleria, and the Trinidad Lake. So these are the distribution points initially. Mr. Kress mentioned that we might expand that to include the rest of the downtown merchants, yes.
And we need to get them into the other welcome centers around the state.
They went directly to centers around the state, 3 boxes each.
3 boxes each.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're already distributed.
Okay.
We pushed the deadline so that we could have that happen and meet the state's deadline. So they are already out in welcome center stage.
Okay.
For the question. Okay, that was the staff report. Did you have any questions for me on the distribution?
Just how many are left? How many, do we know how many left are
We
left?
can get an inventory.
Just for an idea.
The one that, when you get the Welcome Center linked in, I would like them in the group also.
We're going to do, yes, we'll have the
We
Welcome
didn't
Center.
mention them.
The Welcome Center manager and event planner will be
Right.
linked into the craft group for sure. We will ask for, at our next meeting, an executive session. That will be on June 6th at our next meeting, and that executive session will be about reorganizing, and the staffing will be about staffing at the Welcome Center.
And just as our own daily chores that we do around town, any of the businesses that you hear that got these guides, it's really important to ask if they're still being done. So if you tasted cotton candy, or even the first real date you went on. In fact, the Santa Fe Trail Days Festival has been creating memories for people since young and old since 1980. So that's 37 years. This year's Santa Fe Trail Festival is going to be bigger and better than ever, with Central Park devoted to crafts, automobile and bike show, live music and dancing. Live dancing, a pet parade, laser tag, a movie after dark, a horseshoe tournament, fishing tournament for kids, a myriad of events for children, guests from all over the state, even a beer garden that we all know and expect. But our Santa Fe Trail Days wouldn't be possible without corporate sponsors. It is only through partnerships with local companies that we can provide such high quality entertainment at such a low price. Therefore, we are we are requesting an advertising donation of $10,000 for the 2018 Santa Fe Trail Phelps Festival. We appreciate your past contribution in considering and support our 2018 festival. We know that together we can make this year's Santa Fe Trail Festival the best it could be. And yours, Linda Bear, and the president. I know that that amount is really high for us because we don't have that amount for advertising and promotion, but you know, I think that there still needs to be some sort of a token amount from this board because it is the Santa Fe Trail Festival. Even if it is for local residents, they bring their families in the surrounding area.
And I think we have to be involved in all of them.
Yeah, so I don't know what that price is, I don't know what everybody feels about that. 10,000 is much more for us than we can afford right now, based on all the other stuff that's coming up this year, but what do you guys think?
You have 3,000 left in that line item.
And what do we have for Art Arcade and Trinidadio?
Well,
Nothing, right?
Trinidadio is 15,000.
Okay.
Trout Unlimited got 2,000. You have 3,000 left in the line item.
And again, that might mean that in the future we may be able to decide something different, but Tara's right, it's only $3,000 right now. And we still haven't gotten our tourism tax money for the ending quarter of, well, June, next month we'll have another, so we'll have some more money in July to decipher through. But do people feel comfortable with the $3,000? What do you guys think?
I'd say two, to leave a balance in there, and then if we could down the road,
Okay,
that's,
what do you think,
I'm okay
2,000?
with that.
You okay with 2,000? Okay. Okay, we do appreciate our chamber. We're trying for them to, you know, make sure that we give them enough encouragement to do better than.
We'll need a motion and a second and a vote.
Okay, so a motion for $2,000.
I move.
second.
All in favor?
Right.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Next meeting times, so,
We have approval of the bills.
Bills.
approval of the bills.
The credit card charge noted $18.99. I did go back and do the research early this morning, and that is for our Wix, which is our website. It's an $18.99 charge per month to host our website, so that is a valid charge.
Gotcha.
And payroll that's Raven, right?
That is Raven and the Welcome Center, and there's $20 to a trolley driver there
Okay.
who drove a city tour not too long ago.
And Studio 6, that
That's
was.
the final payment for the guide. And there's the Trout Unlimited outside agency support.
So I need a motion to approve the bills as they said.
I motion to approve the bills as is right there.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Okay.
Next meeting time?
June
uh,
6th.
June 6th at 9 o'clock.
Would it be possible for us to have a 30-minute extension and either make the meeting from 8:30 to 11 or 9 to 11:30? Because I want to anticipate we are going to need to do an executive session for 30 minutes.
And I will be out of town.
Okay.
I can't go past 11.
Okay.
So 8:30, fine, I would rather go 8:30.
8:30 is fine?
Yeah.
Then we'll do the executive session first, and then we'll start our regular meeting at 9.
I can attend by phone.
I will ask you to attend by phone in the
Okay.
executive session, for sure. And then would Ms. Campbell run the meeting then as the chair on the 6th? Okay, great, perfect. Last question from staff. We distributed the packet materials via email prior to the meeting. Do you like that, or do you prefer to arrive and have a packet at your place?
Both.
Both. You want to see the meeting on Wednesday? That gives you the weekend. And then we'll have it at your place for the meeting. Okay?
Thank you,
And
Tara.
thanks,
You're
guys.
welcome.
Thanks, guys, for everything. I know this is, we're under a lot of pressure to do the best that we can for Trinidad.
And thank you to Victor for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
Victor!
Thank you.
Oh, such good buddies now.
Are we adjourned, Chair?
Oh,
We're adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Any opposed?
Turn off that camera, Tom. We're buddies, except no one called me yesterday, you know that.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to work.